are love stories that do not belong to just two people. They belong to the memory of an entire generation. And when such a story collapses, people do not only mourn for them, they mourn for themselves, for that fragile belief that love, if beautiful enough, could conquer everything. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were exactly that kind of love story. There was a time when they were Hollywood's ultimate dream, two radiant souls, two contrasting personalities, yet drawn together like opposite poles of a magnet. He, Brad Pitt, the quintessential American man, calm, strong, with a smile that once made the whole world melt. She, Angelina Jolie, the symbol of rebellion, mystery, and compassion, a heart both fiery and wounded. When they appeared together in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, audiences felt it wasn't just a movie. It was destiny. On October 6th, in a series of newly released court documents, Angelina Jolie described the NDA, non-disclosure agreement, request made by Brad Pitt as extremely painful. She also asked him to pay $33,000 in attorney's fees, a small sum compared to their hundreds of millions in assets, yet deeply symbolic. It was not merely a legal fee, but a statement, a declaration from a woman reclaiming her right to silence on her own terms, not under the constraint of a contract. According to the documents, Jolie alleged that Pitt demanded she sign the NDA as a condition for him to buy her share of the Chateau Miraval winery, their joint property in the south of France. Jolie argued that this was an unnecessary and controlling act, especially since she had never publicly discussed the real reasons for their breakup during the 5 years following their divorce. As the mother of our children, and as someone who has dedicated her life to protecting victims of abuse around the world, I found that demand profoundly painful, Jolie wrote in her filing. Those words, gentle yet cutting, once again sent shockwaves through the media and the public. Because behind them lies something far deeper than a business dispute. It is a quiet war between two opposing desires. One side wishing to end things in silence, the other yearning to speak her truth, no matter how much that truth might hurt. In May 2005, when news of their relationship broke, Hollywood erupted. The media coined the name Brangelina, a symbol of the perfect fusion of beauty, talent, and power. Wherever they went, they shone, from the red carpets of Cannes and Venice to refugee camps in Darfur, Cambodia, and Pakistan. They were not just in love. They were changing the world together. The image of Jolie cradling one of her adopted children, with Pitt walking beside her, his eyes filled with pride, became one of Hollywood's most heartwarming sights. To the public, theirs was a real-life fairy tale, a man leaving behind the glitz of fame to build, with the woman he loved, a multi-ethnic family where 6 children from around the globe grew up surrounded by love. And when they married at Chateau Miraval, a picturesque estate in the south of France, in 2014, people believed the story had reached its perfect conclusion. Jolie in her wedding gown embroidered with her children's drawings, Pitt smiling radiantly. It was more than a wedding. It was a declaration of love itself. The two quickly became the world's ultimate power couple, icons of cinema and symbols of compassion. They adopted children from across the world, advocated for human rights, and joined humanitarian missions for refugees. In the eyes of the media, Jolie and Pitt were the embodiment of the perfect family, but perfection only existed on the surface. In 2016, Jolie filed for divorce, accusing Brad Pitt of abusing her and their children aboard a private plane, an event that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Fans could not fathom that the man once hailed as Hollywood's golden father could face such accusations. Yet Jolie did not give interviews or lash out in public. She chose silence, a silence that felt both defensive and sacrificial, as if she were trying to preserve the last fragile piece of peace for her children. 8 years later, just when the public believed the chapter was closed, Jolie reemerged, this time in another legal battle. She challenged Pitt's demand that she sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, as a condition for him to buy her share of their beloved Chateau Miraval winery and a property deeply tied to the memories of their marriage. Jolie argued that the demand was unnecessary and, in her words, extremely painful, emphasizing that in the years since their separation, she had never once spoken ill of him in public. A single sheet of paper, an NDA that might seem like a routine business document, suddenly became a symbol of a much deeper spiritual conflict. One side seeking silence, the other refusing to let that silence become a lifelong obligation. An NDA, non-disclosure agreement, is a legal instrument widely used in business to protect trade secrets. But when it is invoked within personal relationships, especially after a divorce, its nature changes. It no longer serves as a means of protection. It becomes a tool of control. In court documents filed in Los Angeles on October 9th, Jolie stated clearly, "There is no legitimate need for an NDA, as I have not sued or spoken publicly about the events that led to our divorce. As the mother of our children, and as someone who advocates for victims of abuse worldwide, I found his demand extremely painful." That was not merely a statement, it was a moral declaration. It drew a sharp line between confidentiality and coercion, because when a woman has chosen silence for years, not out of fear, but out of compassion, demanding that she remain silent through a binding legal document is, in essence, asking her to sign away her right to tell the truth. Jolie's attorney, Paul Murphy, called Pitt's move legally baseless and the latest effort to control Angelina. From the fans' perspective, this struck a deep emotional chord, especially with millions of women who have lived through suffocating relationships. They saw in Jolie a reflection of themselves, someone who once endured, who once chose restraint, and who finally spoke up, not to win, but because the weight of injustice had become unbearable. Pitt may argue that he simply sought to protect his public image and the Miraval brand, a rationale that makes sense in a world where reputation equals market value. But the question remains, can one's reputation truly be safeguarded by another person's silence? Their love may have begun with passion, but beneath that intensity were two entirely different worlds. Jolie, a woman who once described herself as addicted to extreme emotions, lived perpetually on the edge between light and darkness, good and evil. Pitt, a man in search of balance, found himself irresistibly drawn into the storm that was Angelina. In an interview after their split, Pitt admitted he had lost himself in the marriage. Jolie, on the other hand, said she had sacrificed herself to keep the family's peace. When placed side by side, their words sound like two echoes drifting in opposite directions, the eternal tragedy of great love stories, when two people love deeply, yet no longer speak the same language. Perhaps Pitt loved Jolie because she made him feel alive, because with her he could burn with intensity. But that same intensity exhausted him. And Jolie, who had lost her mother to cancer and endured a youth haunted by darkness, sought in Pitt a place of calm. When that peace was gone, she crumbled. The Chateau Miraval estate was once the foundation of their family, the place where they married, where they raised their children, where sweet grapes ripened into wine. But now it stands as a symbol of fracture. Jolie has said she will never set foot in Miraval again because that place holds too many painful memories. Pitt, meanwhile, continues to hold on to it, as if it were the last fragment of a past he cannot let go of. Miraval is not just a property. It is both witness and casualty, a silent observer of love and of its unraveling. When two people build something together, they don't just create a physical space. They infuse it with pieces of their souls. So when everything collapses, neither can escape the feeling of having lost a part of themselves. And perhaps that is why the legal battle over Miraval has become so intense. It is no longer about money, it is about memory. When Angelina Jolie said that Pitt's NDA demand was extremely painful, many wondered why a simple legal document could wound her so deeply. The answer lies in the depth of their relationship.